Hello everyone. Honestly, I wasn't planning to make a video on this topic, at least not on this channel. It all started when I needed a simple but good uninterruptible power supply that could provide an output power of around 120 to 150 watts to power a small laser engraver, a laptop, lighting, and a ventilation system. A good friend gave me such an uninterruptible power supply for free, but the problem was that it wasn't working. The UPS is ancient, from the late 90s, but it's from the popular APC. And it was made back when they didn't skimp, especially on safety. In general, it's a good one. It's the backup's 500 model, but for some reason, I feel like it's the 300 model inside. The UPS is 300 watts if it's 500 volt amperes, and 180 watts if it's the 300 model. It's worn out by time, dirty, and battered, but today we're going to breathe new life into it. The good thing is that this UPS doesn't contain any complex microcontrollers in its composition. Everything is made with simple and understandable microchips. You can even find a schematic for it, and it's actually not complicated. This UPS was previously attempted to be repaired, but apparently something went wrong and the technician gave up on it, and rightly so. In the end, everything will become clear. Inspection showed that one inverter transistor was ripped out, the others are in a short circuit, and there's a jumper instead of a fuse. Everything is abundantly smeared with sticky flux, and there's also a repair trace. In addition to all this, for some reason, the insulation of the power transformer was cut. At first, I thought the problem would be solved by replacing the inverter keys, but alas. At the very beginning, before disassembly, it's necessary to carefully photograph the transformer connections, because many wires come out of it. But to be fair, I should note that they are all labeled. But it's still worth taking precautions. Next, I removed the board for examination, and at the very beginning, it's important to get rid of that sticky flux. Well, now we can proceed with the diagnostics. Regarding the board, it is built on 6 clear and simple microchips. No microcontrollers here. As I already mentioned, the uninterruptible power supply was made in the late 90s. The power inverter is built on 4 MOSFET transistors. Each pair of switches is paralleled. Here, they use IRFZ46 switches. However, the heat sinks for them are painfully small. But on the other hand, such devices are not designed for long-term operation, so it's all right. The heart of the inverter is the ancient PWM controller CS3524. It's the same as the SG3524. As I understand it, the SG was invented back in the late 70s, and I found a datasheet for the CS3524 from 1996. By those standards, it's a pretty decent PWM controller, which has its own 5-volt reference voltage source, 1 error amplifier, and an output stage with a current of 200 milliamps. Naturally, there's no serious driver for working with gates here. If you need it, you'll have to build it yourself. There is also a protection input. It suggests that this is the predecessor of the more modern SG3525. In any case, first, we need to make sure that this controller is working. Judging by the connection, the protection pin is not used at all. The PWM output stage is connected with an open collector, and to prevent them from floating, they are pulled up to the positive with resistors. If we apply an average of 12 volts to pins 15 and 8, the PWM should start. Pin 15 is positive, and pin 8 is ground, respectively. If it doesn't start, it either went into protection mode or is completely non-functional. Honestly, I have no desire to learn everything about this ancient PWM. Therefore, if needed, we'll study it as necessary. In general, we could do a master class, explaining that the signal taken from the PWM output first goes to the logic or not. Then the logic output controls the power switches, and there will be a high level at this output only if both of its inputs are at a low level. This is still an inverter, and under what conditions? There will be no enabling signal for the inverter on the other input of the logic. But that's boring, you must agree. I had a 10-minute explanation of the circuit written in the script, but I cut it out because it would just be a description of the operating principle of some components of this UPS. And people would start complaining that it has nothing to do with repairs, and therefore it's pointless chatter. So, let's get to the point. Do you see these 2 connectors where the switches from the front panel were connected? We connect them, then set about 12 volts on the lab power supply and limit the current to around 100 to 200 milliamps. Then we press this small button down. The inverter will start. We turn on the oscilloscope and check for a signal on the gate of the keys. Here, as we can see, there's a perfect square wave with a duty cycle of less than 20%. This is normal because there is no feedback. And most likely, the PWM has set the minimum duration. Moreover, the peak-to-peak voltage is above 10 volts, which is also normal and sufficient for proper key control. The pulses have quite sharp edges, and the frequency is 60 Hz. This is for the American grid. To set it to 50 Hz, simply switch the corresponding switch at the back of the source. After checking the power transistors, I realized they were burnt out, and one was even missing. I replaced all four with much better IRF 3205S, which have half the on-state resistance compared to the ones originally installed. And the drain current is higher. This means these keys will heat up less, but you can also draw more power. By the way, there was no thermal paste from the factory. I decided to apply KPT8. It's the perfect spot for it. Some might say that the APC developers aren't fools, and thermal paste isn't needed here because the current from the transistor's drain is dissipated through the heatsink. In fact, this is partly true, but the middle lead, which is the drain, is also soldered to the board and ultimately connects with the heatsink. Overall, there are no issues with current collection, and thermal paste certainly won't hurt. I put the transistors back in place, started it up, and as expected, everything worked. And I began to rejoice. And then, a problem arose. The source does not switch to UPS mode if the network goes down, and overall, the battery charging doesn't work. I restored the converter's operation, but another problem surfaced, or rather, two problems. Firstly, the battery charging doesn't work here, and the UPS doesn't switch if the mains voltage disappears. That is, its primary purpose, the UPS function, doesn't work here. Currently, we have incoming power. I used a laboratory power supply as a battery. I don't think it's that important. So, instead of a battery, a lab power supply is connected here, and if I disconnect the mains power now, theoretically, it should switch to UPS mode. Let's disconnect it. Nothing happened. It didn't switch to UPS mode. So I connected it to the appropriate terminals, and am now forcibly starting it as a UPS. This is how it works. The network is absent. Notice, I can even disconnect the network output. In this state, it works fine. In a few words, I'll explain how the device works at this stage. The upper terminal has power only when the network is connected. The network is on that far terminal. When the device operates in UPS mode, there is no power here. Instead, power is available on the lower three terminals, which is when it works as a voltage converter. However, if it's connected to the network, then there is no power at all on these three lower terminals. The multimeter is now connected to the wires from the battery or to the battery itself, and we see zeros. That means the charging is not working. The device is receiving mains power. Everything is fine here. In general, there is a separate transformer here, the one that is soldered directly onto the board, and it provides standby power and battery charging. It turned out that there is a fuse in its primary circuit, which had blown. I put in a jumper, connected it, and this Zener diode, which was shorted, started to heat up. After removing it and turning it on again, the transformer heated up to 100 degrees in 10 seconds, and as it turned out later, it was burnt out. I think the following happened. There was a surge in the mains voltage, which caused the Zener diode to burn out. In theory, it is rated for 33 volts, and at that voltage, it will open. But the current through the Zener diode is not limited by anything, and it will simply burn out. The short circuit will lead to an increase in current in the secondary circuit, and consequently in the primary circuit, until the fuse burns out. In theory, it is a fast-acting fuse, but apparently that wasn't enough. The thing is, the Zener diode itself formed, not a dead short circuit, but a certain resistance. It was 20-something ohms. Judging by the characteristics of this transformer and Ohm's law, the current in the circuit was slightly more than 1 ampere. As a result, the transformer overheated, the varnish melted, and a short circuit occurred in the winding, specifically in the primary one. I found this out later. Well, after the short circuit, the current sharply increased, and only then did the fuse blow. That's it, the case is solved. These unclear inscriptions, which I didn't pay attention to at the very beginning, were most likely a message from the previous repairman. He probably marked the non-working components this way. I desoldered the transformer, and of course, it can be rewound, but it's a long and tedious process. So I found something similar, but this transformer outputs less voltage than the factory one, and overall the power capacity is lower. The voltage in this case is about 22 volts, and in principle, that's enough because the UPS itself is powered by a regulator at 15 volts. And the power capacity, well, what can you do? The charging current will be lower. No need to write that I could have put a pulse charger here, and it would have been much better. I know, it's possible, but I didn't. If the electricity goes out often, it's better to adapt another, more powerful charger here. But in my case, this will be enough. Everything is ready. I just was too lazy to change the fuse. In the end, I cleaned the case, removed this metal piece, because with it, the new lithium battery wouldn't fit in the case. Well, basically everything is ready. Then the tests began. The UPS operated with a load of 160 watts for more than 20 minutes, and during this time, the maximum temperature I recorded was 50 degrees. Neither the transistors nor the transformer heated above this value, and that's really cool. In a closed case, the temperature will be higher, I know that, but I don't think it will be critical. Overall, its specifications completely satisfy me. With such a battery, you can power a load of 150 watts, that's the maximum in my case, for an hour and a half, at the very least, considering the efficiency of the converter. Oh, I forgot to mention the battery. It's lithium, made entirely from scratch. You'll find a link to the video with this battery in the description. I am satisfied with the work done, and in my case, such fuss is justified by the fact that a video was being made and there's a benefit in that. Otherwise, if I were a repairman and someone brought this thing in for repair, I would say that the repair is not cost-effective. The UPS itself is inexpensive, and replacing the transformer, 4 power switches, and so on, already exceeds the cost of a used UPS of the same type. This video is coming to an end. I remind you that besides this channel, I have others where videos are released much more frequently, and links to those channels will be in the description. I would appreciate your subscription. Well, that's all from me. As always, this was Kasyan with you, and see you next time. Goodbye.